Ever wonder what it actually takes to be a trader? I'll give you a hint. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room because that definitely wasn't me. In this video, I'm going to share my personal experience of working on the trading floor and also give you step-by-step tips on how you can break into the industry and crush your interviews. I'm going to go over how to send cold emails that people actually respond to, how to network properly, and how to ace your interviews, both behavioral and your technicals. By the end of this, you'll learn the top strategies you need to use and the top mistakes that you need to avoid. So let's get into it. Okay, let's start with the first step of the entire process, which is reaching out to people who work in the industry and setting up informational interviews, or as we would like to call them, coffee chats. Your goal is to build genuine connections with these people because they can give you tips, advice, or even refer you to their job openings. And this can really make or break your chances of getting an interview, especially if you don't know anyone in the industry. Because banks get hundreds of applications for their job postings, and truthfully, they don't have time to look at every resume carefully. However, if they see your resume and instantly recognize your name because they remembered having a nice chat with you a few months ago, you'll stand out from the rest and be more likely to be selected for an interview stage. So in order to do cold outreach, LinkedIn is going to be your best friend. You want to find people who work in similar roles for what you're applying to, and in your email, ask them if you can talk to them and have a quick informational interview. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people do is they'll send an email with a very generic message. It'll say something like, "Hi, my name is Sherry and I'm interested in learning about your role. Are you free for a 30-minute call?" And this just feels like a low effort copy and paste message, which it probably was to 10 other people. But you want your email to feel personal and that you've done your research on them. So my first tip is to find a common interest or connection and lead your email with that. So when you're looking through their LinkedIn profiles, check to see what other previous experiences they have listed on there, like past jobs, any clubs that they've joined, or interests that they have. And if you can find that one thing you have in common, use that in your email subject line to differentiate yourself. The easiest is if they're an alumni at the same school that you went to. So for example, if I were to send an email to a university alum and I saw on their profile that they enjoyed traveling, I would use a subject line like, "Fellow school alum seeking your insight on career and travel," and then leave your contact information so that they know where to find you and look you up if they're curious. You gotta remember that you're not the only one emailing them. There are probably 20 other people also trying to get an informational interview with them. So in this case, if you have a boring or a generic message, it's not really gonna entice them to go out of their way to speak with you. I'll be honest, the response rate for your email will be pretty low. Maybe 5 to 10% of the people will respond, but don't let that discourage you and keep sending out those thoughtfully crafted emails because it's a numbers game, right? If you send 70 to 100 emails out, you'll definitely expect to hear back from at least 5 to 10 people. And if you're thinking, well, why would these people respond to my email anyway? Don't they know that I'm just trying to get a job through them? My answer to that is yes, they definitely know you want to speak with them to get hired, but they've also been in your shoes not that long ago. So they'll respond to you because it's a way for them to give back. But also, if you end up getting hired and you perform well, it'll also make them look good. The industry is smaller than you think, so if you get a job somewhere, you could be a really valuable connection for them in the future. Okay, now on to the actual networking part, which brings me to my next tip, which is when you're having a conversation with them, avoid bringing up topics such as how much money they make, how many hours they work, and any information that you can easily find online yourself. Instead, you can ask them open-ended questions such as how they got started in their career or how they moved from one job to the other. Your goal is to build genuine connections with these people, and they'll be more willing to help you if they can relate with you. Another crucial tip that I have is at the end of your conversation, always make a small ask. So this could be asking them to refer you to someone else that you can talk to, or if they can pass your resume along to the rest of their team. You gotta be proactive and be direct, so don't be afraid to ask. I know so many candidates who were too intimidated to ask at the end of the conversation. But trust me, people are willing to help you, but you're never gonna get that help if you don't ask for it. And finally, my last networking tip that I don't see a lot of people doing is after your informational interview is done and you think that it went well, keep the conversation going. If you see an article or a market headline later on, flip it over to them in an email and say something like, "Hey, I'm not sure if you saw this, but I thought this was really interesting because of reason XYZ." And then you can ask them what they think. And you can keep the email very short and super simple, but it makes a huge impression on them because it shows them that A, you're keeping up with the markets, B, you're putting in an effort to build your connection with them, and C, you're already processing information like a trader. Okay, now onto the exciting part, the interview stage. Most sales and trading interviews will have 2 rounds. The first will be an HR screening and maybe 1 to 2 interviews that could be done online. And the second round is going to be their super day. So this is conducted at their office, and you could have 5 back-to-back interviews with traders in different teams and different seniorities. In terms of what interview questions they will ask you, there are 2 buckets. The first are behavioral questions. These will assess your fit with the company culture and how well you'll get along with the team. And then you have your technical questions, which focus on your knowledge on the markets and the different products that they trade. A common mistake that I see a lot of people make is that they will spend all their time preparing technical questions, and then they will end up flopping their behavioral interview. The truth is, everyone applying to these roles are smart and have strong technical skills. So really, the way that you're going to stand out is by also crushing your behaviorals. So the main questions that I guarantee they will ask you are, tell me about yourself, why do you want to work in this role, and why do you want to join this company? You really want to practice and master your personal story because this sets the tone for the entire interview. So make sure to talk about what sparked your finance interest, how that grew over time, and why you're here today interviewing with them. For me, I like to focus on workplace culture and the people, so I will always mention the names of everyone that I spoke to at their company. And for the remaining behavioral questions that they might ask you, they are very similar to what you can find online in all the finance interview guides. So I won't waste your time. They do a much better job of going through the details than I can. But the main difference with sales and trading interview questions is that you want to focus on important traits on the trading floor. So these could be thinking quickly, being a good communicator, and handling pressure well. But overall, my biggest advice for behavioral interviews is to just be yourself and show that you have a good attitude, because that is truly the best trait that anyone can have. And the final portion of the interview are your technicals. So you'll have your market-based questions and your product questions. The main market questions that you can expect are, tell me something that you're following in the markets and give me your opinion on it, pitch me a stock trade or any type of trade idea. You'll be asked an asset allocation question. So if I gave you $10 million, how would you invest it? Where do you think interest rates are going to go? What is the next Fed's decision? And then finally, you want to know where all the major indices are trading at. So think the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, FTSE 100, you get the idea. So the best way to prepare is to just read the news every day. I liked reading the Wall Street Journal, but I also subscribe to other newsletters such as the Morning Brew. And there are so many different ones that you can subscribe to out there. I think these questions are great and give you the biggest chance to stand out because it allows you to take full control in what direction you want to take the topic of the conversation. However, my biggest tip is to always take a view on whatever you're going to talk about. So whether it's about the Fed's interest rate decisions or the performance of the S&P 500, don't just describe what's going on in the environment, but also have an opinion on this and then tell them what direction you think it's going to go. Okay, now we're going to talk about product-based questions. Different teams will ask different questions, but in general, know the basics of all the products that they trade, such as equities, rates, FX, and commodities. And I think it's also really important to understand derivatives, such as when they are used and how to calculate them. And sometimes they'll throw a brain teaser at the end, which is meant to be tricky. So my biggest tip is to just be honest with your answers and talk them through your thought process. So if you get a question that you don't know, admit to them that you don't know it, and then you can ask them clarification questions and then tell them what you think the answer is along with why you think that. And again, there are so many online resources. I would just search sales and trading, behavioral and technical interview questions, and they cover everything that you need to prepare for a lot better than I can. All right, lastly, I wanted to touch on the topic of programming. So you've probably heard that trading is becoming more and more automated, which is true. However, they probably won't give you any programming or coding tests unless you're going for a role that's really quantitative and you'll be coding for most of the day. In my experience, having worked in both equities and fixed income trading, knowing VBA and Python is definitely helpful. But don't be discouraged if you don't know how to code. I didn't have a programming background and I still got the job. I just showed that I was willing to learn and I taught myself the basics using free resources online. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out my video here where I talk all about my complete honest experience of working on the trading floor. I cover everything from the highlights of the job to the aspects that I didn't love as much. And as always, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video.